My name is Mackenzie Campbell.
And I'm Richard Hager.
We are Hager and Campbell Consulting, and today we are going to be talking to you about how you should prevent tragedy on your university by implementing harm reduction strategies.
We'll begin by addressing the problem at hand. Unfortunately, in the last year, 2 individuals have died on your campus from fentanyl-related opioid overdose stemming from fake presses of the common antidepressant Xanax. In accordance with Florida state law, campus safety and law enforcement officers already carry opioid antagonists. However, we want to encourage you to make a community-wide pivot and offer it to all members of your community, as well as some other types of opioid abatement technology. In order to facilitate your understanding of circumstances, we'll briefly discuss the fentanyl crisis. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid which can kill in extremely small amounts, and according to the DEA, 77% of overdoses last year had something to do with fentanyl.
Next, we'll be moving into the 3 waves of opioid death crises. First, since 1990s, this is when we saw prescription drugs really take off. People got addicted to these after they were prescribed them from a doctor. Next, we moved into 2010, wave 2. This is where we saw a lot of people getting addicted to heroin. After that slowly started coming off, this is when the rise in synthetic drug opioid crisis really began in 2013, which we are focused on today because this relates to fentanyl being laced on synthetic drugs. So moving into another remedy on top of the Narcan that you already have at Sawgrass State, we're going to be talking to you about fentanyl test strips. As you can see, it's a cost-efficient way and effective way to test whether or not fentanyl is laced on a drug. They come in at about $2 per strip, and as you can see, 1 red line means that it is positive for fentanyl, and 2 means it is negative. Now, you may be worried that this is going to encourage drug use. However, through the National Institute of Health, it says that it does not encourage drug use. And in fact, people who admitted to using fentanyl test strips were already prior users of drug.
Telling is one thing, showing is another. According to a study from the University of Rhode Island, where 93 people were given 10 fentanyl test strips and allotted to use them during their recreational drug use time, 62% of the participants returned each one saying they had used 1 fentanyl test strip at least, and all of them saying, if allowed, they would continue to use them. Within the field of drug rehabilitation, a phenomenon known as danger realization, where you see a fentanyl test strip return positive, is extremely beneficial towards making people go towards recovery. So fentanyl test strips actually drive people away from drugs instead of towards them.
So this is our outline for today. We are going to walk you through the economic factors, the legal factors, and the ethical factors.
We'll begin with economic. So let's talk about your abatement expenses. We're going to encourage you to purchase naloxone, which when bought in bulk is $9 to 1 dose, and we're going to encourage you to purchase 500 doses. We also encourage you to purchase fentanyl test strips in the amount of 1,000 test strips, and when purchased in bulk, that comes out to about $2 per test strip. We're also going to encourage you to purchase Narcan vending machines, which average out about $6,000. Naloxone has a shelf life of 3 years, so that expense would be for 3 years. Fentanyl test strips, 24 months, and vending machines are a durable good, which will last you numerous years.
So in summary, your Narcan and your test strips are going to cost you roughly $4,500 for 500 doses of Narcan per every 2 to 3 years, and it will cost you $2,000 for 1,000 test strips per 2 years. Now, not to sound insensitive, but you could be losing up to $40,000 worth of tuition per student per year for up to 4 years, which would cause your net income to go down.
Next, we'll pivot to the legal aspect. So, House Bill 783 was passed in 2023, and the language relegates that all Florida college system institutions with dormitories and residence must stock those dormitory and residence halls with opioid antagonists. However, the law only stipulates that law enforcement officials and campus safety officers are to have access as they are trained in its administration. We say that our approach differs, that you should have more than just naloxone and other opioid antagonists, as well as making it available to the entire community.
On top of it not only being the law now in Florida, Florida also has civil, professional, and criminal immunity against Narcan administration. Therefore, your university cannot face a lawsuit against the administration of Narcan on your campus. So not only is it now the law, but you are protected against any liability that your university would have potentially faced. So why no questions asked? We ask that you implement a confidentiality agreement amongst your faculty and your students, so that way students face no hesitation when going to get these Narcan or fentanyl test strips, and this can be the difference between life or death. This is the critical moment that they can go and get this Narcan and save a life. Next, we will be moving into the ethical components.
Within the past 20 years, there's been a major shift in consensus among doctors when it comes to prescribing. From learning disabilities all the way to terminal illnesses, we've seen an increase in prescription drugs. Because of that, we've seen an increase in the amount of illicit drugs being used, and we've seen an increase in this Generation Z and subsequent generations in fentanyl lacings. I'll direct your attention to the image on the screen. That is a pencil, and on the edge of that pencil is 1 milligram of pure fentanyl, which when ingested is enough to kill a human being, an adult man. Now, despite the lack of legal liability that you possess, we stipulate that you have a moral obligation to your students to act.
So our recommended course of action for you is to keep providing public Narcan on your campus community-wide. Also, add the addition of fentanyl test strips. We ask that you do a no questions asked policy, and that you provide posters in frequently used buildings or dormitories to provide use of how to use these Narcan and fentanyl test strips, and to raise awareness against drug use. We also ask that you provide campus-wide training amongst faculty and staff and students so they are aware of these situations.
Taking our recommended course of action real world, let's look at Oakland University in Michigan, where we're implementing the Narcan vending machine, stocked with over 200 doses of naloxone, as well as a plethora of other opioid abatement technology. We've identified the 3 reasons as to why this works so well is that the system is rapid, anonymous, and efficient in its distribution. This goes along with the values outlined in the brief that it does not encourage drug use, as we have outlined, as well as students should not fear repercussion when helping. Taking this story real world, and when you don't have these sort of measures in place, we'll look at 19-year-old Elizabeth Burton. Miss Burton was an honors student at UNC Chapel Hill, and a good person, described by her friends as loving, caring, and sincere. However, one weekend she went to Duke University to party where she was exposed to some cocaine which was laced with fentanyl. Miss Burton would die on the floor of a Duke University dorm room because the people she was partying with wouldn't take her to the doctor because they were afraid of what would happen after. I contend that if public Narcan and distribution systems like we recommend that you use today were available at Duke University that night, Miss Burton would still be alive.
We want to thank you for your time and consideration, and again, we ask that you invest in prevention to get your students away from what is on the left and get them to the happy, joyous moment after 4 years at your university on the right. Thank you.
Thank you.